So, welcome to another episode of the Orchestrate AI podcast. Again, with me is Dr. Arthur Gordon, our senior board member at Orchestrate AI Forum and senior AI expert with more than 30 years experience across academia, industry, and business adoption. Today, we're diving deeper into the direction that AI is heading and asking a big, timely question: Quo vadis AI? Where is all of this going? Yeah. And this is not without reason, because we have because we are currently seeing a deeply divided discussion across two fundamental perspectives on the current state and future direction of AI across the academic spectrum of the key AI thought leaders in this space. And basically discussing this topic across two different perspectives. The first one is, are we witnessing the rise of a brute force model where only scale, speed, and commercial profit dominate everything, regardless of the outcomes? Or is there still space for something more curated and more intentional, more orchestrated, and more human-centered in the development of future AI? Yeah. And to help us unpack this, as I said, I'm joined again by Arthur, who has spent decades at the intersection of AI, industry, and systems thinking. So Arthur, let's start right there. How do you reconcile those dramatic differences among the very people who have built the foundation of AI?
It's very difficult to be reconciled, especially from a political point of view. The sad fact is that the introduction of AI, the mass-scale introduction of AI into society, that happened 2.5 years ago with the invasion of ChatGPT, introduced and the political component in the picture. And now it's a central topic. It's at the center of the storm, if I can use this analogy. But here is the point where I would like to make a comment that my opinion is a personal opinion from somebody from the practice. I look at all of these hurricanes above me, ideological, if I may say, hurricanes, from the point of view of their practical implications when we apply AI. And I have a very clear opinion about this. Some of this opinion probably is controversial. But the strength of this opinion is that it's based on practical experience. Mm-hmm. From practical point of view, it's very clear that whatever we offer on the table to the businesses in the next 5, 10, or I assume in all the future implementations in the business, AI will be a significant and growing component. We need some understanding of what we apply. And that's the key argument that diverts my opinion toward the direction where we need knowledge of what we apply. It's very dangerous to apply anything which is initially a black box and becomes more and more a black hole.
Yeah, black hole is a good picture. Yeah, exactly, especially for the brute force AI.
And in fact, and I'll tell you one, even at the beginning of my career applying AI, is the real clients, the real users of AI at the time, the process operators in a command room in a big chemical plant. At that time, I was at Dow Chemical. They told me very clearly when we tried to apply a black box, at that time, I'm talking about 97, about a simple shallow now with the words neural net. They told me, I'm sorry, sir, I cannot close the loop with a $1 billion reactor with a black box. I need to trust this thing.
Mm.
Prove me that it operates according to the laws of physics, of chemistry, etc. But to tell me, okay, this is some magic, you need to trust, no way. And that's at the beginning, even of applied simple AI systems. Now we're going to the extreme of systems with billions, trillions of parameters, but with the same flow. We don't know what's inside. And we're beginning to apply them in more and more and more complex, important, and potentially dangerous systems. That's to me the key dilemma about, and from practical point of view, it's very clear the solution. Especially when we go to real impact of AI. I may call it, we have the administrative layer where applying ChatGPT, yeah, it's mass scale, everybody can do it, but it's an administrative AI. Yeah, the economic impact, it can reduce partially the administrative layer, but it will not really increase productivity. It will not make the production of epoxy at Dow Chemical more productive with reducing 10 clerks in the business office doing their language stuff 10 times more effectively with ChatGPT. It's not the way to show economic
Yeah,
benefits.
good example. Yeah, good example.
So everything is very, very complicated now because the reality is behind the brute force camp stays the big business because it's a fast way to get fast money.
Maybe if we can just stop there and have a more non-technical perspective on what do we mean by brute force, what do we mean by curated AI, and also a little bit where does the aspect of neural networks fit in there. Yeah? From my perspective, the way I understand it is that brute force AI is really simply throwing computing power and resources at the development of these language models, more and more so, in the expectation of commercial profit. And that it is less foreseeable what's going to be the outcome. So we are throwing resources into something, as you say, a black box, where we don't necessarily can predict what's going to be the outcome. Yeah, which is obviously a big risk and a big uncertainty. That's what I understand is the brute force camp. And the curated AI camp is a camp that is more focusing on research and taking a more mindful and intentional approach at architecting towards desired outcomes. Is that correct? And yeah, is that a
Yeah,
correct
that's
assumption? And how does
as a
this
very
reflect? Yeah,
general simplified view,
yeah.
that's correct. And the brute force approach is based on the idea that we don't need to spend too much efforts on understanding of the current top systems in AI. The current top systems of AI are the so-called large language models or ChatGPT type.
Mm-hmm.
They're based on neural nets. The name neural net is linked to our brain as well. Our brain is based on neurons. We have in an average human brain, there are 86 billion neurons. And we operate in a way, even we don't understand 100% well how we do it. But for the artificial brain, this large language models, we think maybe we don't need to understand what's going on. We have some very generic structure, and what we found is, and that's proved with numbers, that the more complex is the structure, that means the more parameters we have, the more artificial neurons we have a better model. That's why we don't need to spend a lot of billions of dollars to understand how and why we get this better results. The only thing we need is to train larger and larger models with a brute force. And by the way, this is not a very cheap exercise. We need a lot of energy.
Yeah,
That's why
energy.
now the focus is, okay, let's build a large centers. Even some of the top giants, tech giants, are talking about even helping to build nuclear stations for delivering this energy. So, and it's not the most dangerous part. The dangerous part is that we, in fact, assume that we can move ahead without understanding how we do it, what we do it, ignoring, in some sense, the safety issues.
Yeah.
What are the deep consequences if this more and more capable, in some sense, artificial systems can do potential damage?
Yeah.
And these are some of the concerns that especially some of the gurus like Jeff Hinton shares, that it could be, and there is a big crowd in the AR community of people who thinks that it could be an existential threat to humanity.
Yes.
If we go in this direction.
Yeah.
The opposite direction is clear. Let's spend efforts, strategic efforts, in order gradually to understand the nature of AI.
But which would mean to take a step back and to
make a step back. Even that is okay. We're not
unlikely going to happen
at the level of intelligence of some animals, of the kids.
Yeah.
So language is not the only carrier of intelligence.
Okay.
And this is another, I think, crucial argument against the universal nature of large language models. Okay, if we have solution based on language, we solve the intelligence problem. No, we don't. We partially solve it. And in order, I always make this analogy, maybe a stupid analogy. Imagine that we began in the 40s, late 30s, 40s in the previous century, to develop an atomic bomb without the physical principles, without the deep understanding at that time of the theory of the atom. We knew the physical principles. We could predict what's going on. We knew how to design all of this stuff.
Good example, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now we think that, and this is super arrogant, to know, without knowing how our own brain operates, to to build super brains based on this.
Yeah.
I think this is, to me, that's why I'm very often very emotional, because I think it's not only wrong, it may be dangerous. And
Yeah.
people don't understand.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's why one of the objectives, I think, even of Orchestrate AI is to spread this message and to send the message to the people, okay, guys, you need to understand the issues. There are a lot of benefits, and we'll talk a lot of benefits, and everybody can gain from these benefits and increase her or his productivity by using ChatGPT. But continuing in this direction could be strategically
Yeah.
the wrong path.
Yeah. So one of the key voices talking about a curated AI approach is Yann LeCun, the chief AI scientist of Meta, Facebook. And he's one of the 3 top AI thinkers in the world, basically. And this is what has been so striking to me, is that I've seen such a significant difference between how he sees the current development and how he sees the prediction of the potential future for AI versus his colleagues Banjo and the third one. And he's basically claiming that large language models will be obsolete within 5 years, which is hard to imagine when we look at the current development. But he's also very positive about the future, and he's also less negative or apocalyptic, let's say, about the potential dangers of AI. And what is so striking to me is why there is so much room for interpretation, even at that top level of academia research. This is really, to me, signaling that we don't seem to understand really the matter and what's really going on, and that there's so many moving parts and so many ifs. There was this one article recently that you shared with me also on Substack by one Spanish AI researcher who asked the question, did we get it all wrong? Yeah, basically. And this is the interesting part. How is there so much space for interpretation and detrimental, differently predictions on the future development of AI?
Look, Yann LeCun, he's not only a visionary on the right direction for this, but what differentiates him is that he has the powerful support of one of the tech giants, Meta. Because it's one thing to have good research ideas now, and this is one of the problems of the current moment, that in order to prove your ideas, you need a lot of computational capacity. And only a limited number of tech giants can afford it. One of which is Meta. And his optimism is in his opportunity to prove some of his concepts. And he's working on these concepts in the last almost 5 years, and only recently, by recently I mean even a couple of weeks ago, he has shown some very relevant results, and to shut a lot of mouths against him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he is optimistic, because he looks at the right vision. He sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He knows the limitations of large language models. For God's sake, he's one of the inventors of the deep neural nets,
Yeah,
which are the basis of deep neural networks that are at the basis of large language models.
And why has this idea of neural nets, as I understand, been abandoned for a long time by academia, and they made a renaissance recently? What is behind that?
I'm not so sure that it was. We began in the facts in history are this. We began in 43. The first paper, scientific paper on AI was linked to a mathematical model of the neuron, to neural networks. Then in 56, when the AI was established and defined as an R&D direction, it was number 3 in the list. But what happened later is that until 86, there was no method for learning that will allow artificial neural nets to learn. That means they were almost useless. After this algorithm had been found, and this is one of the key contributions of Jeff Hinton, he was one of the 3 co-inventors of this algorithm called backpropagation. And neural nets began to be very efficient. But at the same time, I can tell you, the initial credibility of the neural net was not very high. Again, with the facts from my personal experience implementing my first experience with neural net was when I was supposed to use them in one project at Dow Chemical. When I entered, it was related to epoxy, to the epoxy business. When I entered to the business unit at the time and I asked the manager, can you show me the predictions of the neural net of what we tried to predict? And she looked at me, do you really would like to see it? When I confirmed that I really did, and she went to the trash can, I'm not exaggerating, and picked out this printout, old printout, it was 97, of some very wrong prediction of negative values of some chemical substance that cannot be negative. So that was the credibility of the neural net in the trash can. And it was there for a very long time in manufacturing. And the reason for that they cannot extrapolate. At that time, it was the black box nature, which now grows in a much larger scale in the large language models. Now they hallucinate. It's the same pattern. They hallucinate because they cannot extrapolate, they cannot generalize. If they have data, they almost do not hallucinate about Shakespeare because there are a lot of documents related to Shakespeare in the internet. And when they train the large language models, it's pretty well educated on Shakespeare. But try anything else which is more specialized, and it cannot find the words. That's why it began to hallucinate. That means it cannot extrapolate within. It's the same flow. That's why when I hear neural nets,
and obviously these hallucinations carry a lot of risk towards the future, right?
I know this is a brilliant technology, and it's very good technology if you explore it to solve tasks which it does know. At the moment it goes to the unknown territory, it tries to extrapolate are not very successful.
It's pretending to know.
There is a danger of wrong results. And a very common way to do it is the hallucination.
Yeah.
That's why On the other hand, this is the most advanced technology. That's why one of the way to overcome this is to spend more efforts to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Only by understanding we can move ahead.
So if this is so clear and so obvious, and it sounds very logical and reasonable, then the question is how did we get here? Yeah? Why did this brute force approach that we are facing today, scaling data, compute, and statistical patterns, why has it become the dominant AI model, and what are its most urgent blind spots today?
Because it's cheaper. It in fact, it reduces the R&D effort. The alternative is, first, it gives almost immediate results, or everybody, they are talking about this mythical AGI, the artificial general intelligence, that it will happen either next year or not later than 2027. I'm quoting a lot of the top economic gurus in this. When you look at the fundamental issues of AI, they're so deep that we need at least a decade to resolve it. We cannot immediately, with some magical key, try to understand what's going on inside a structure with 1 trillion parameters.
But what would happen in the meantime? This is a very important point, yeah? So we are where we are. We're going at the speed of light. We're throwing all these resources at what we're doing right now. And then there's one group that says, hey, don't worry, because it will run into a built-in limitation, into a glass ceiling, and it won't go any further. That's what Yann LeCun is kind of saying. Then there's another group that says this will accelerate, leave us humans behind and become something that is going to threaten our mere existence. And then there's the third group that doesn't know and says, oh, we should regulate it somehow, but actually we don't know what's going to be the outcome. So this is really, first of all, is this a correct representation of what we're seeing today in the conversation? And how can we have such a different interpretation of what's going on? Yeah. This is what I find so interesting, that the one that's saying, oh, don't worry about it, it's going to run into a built-in limitation. It's not going to be able to outgrow this limitation. And then the other group says, oh, there is no limitation. It's going to grow. It's going to metastasize into something that kind of is becoming Frankenstein's monster, and it's going to come back to haunt us. Yeah. So this is what I find so interesting, that you look at these two concepts. Is it correct?
It's correct. There are even, can tell you, these are the three very clear camps, but there are also some more detailed differences across them as well. But to me, the key, what are the supporters of the brute force? These are the economic people.
OpenAI first and foremost.
Especially led by OpenAI, because this is the mindset of startup managers.
Yeah.
You have some idea, you grew it as fast as possible, and you multiply the benefits.
And there's a demand.
And by the way, the brute force type of AI is the ideal type of AI for their purpose. They don't care about this. The very fact that they began with a safety group, and then it was the key at the conflict between Sam Altman and the rest of the board.
Yeah, the famous falling
Ilya
out
Sutskever, who is the smart guy, who in fact is maybe the leading brain behind ChatGPT, he understands very well the danger. Everybody from the research community understands the danger in the same way as every physicist in the 40s was the danger of building a bomb without atomic theory. It's the
Great
same
analogy. Yeah.
story.
Yeah, exactly.
But with
Exactly.
that difference that now we have the economic impact. And here, especially recently, we see this economic machine. They are talking about $500 billion investment. Where? In the brute force
Yeah.
AI.
And I think
How?
something that you also previously said, it has become a social phenomenon. And because of that, it creates a certain dynamic, economic dynamic, group dynamic, peer pressure. OpenAI basically started the arms race by creating that demand, that baseline demand. And if it becomes such a social phenomenon, like for example, last week there was a time where the system was down for an extended period of time one day, and it made me realize how much I depend already on having GPT at my fingertips. And it will be the same for many, many other people who are extensively using it for their own productivity. So it's a social phenomenon. People have gotten used to it. Some have really so deeply embedded it into their productivity routine that they are kind of addicted to it, that they kind of rely on it. And because of that, exactly as you say, and that makes it even more difficult, it makes it almost impossible to put the ghost back into the bottle because there's such a high demand and everyone wants it. And it's like you're taking people's smartphones away or something like that. Yeah. So it's very,
But
very interesting to be in this point of time when you say, hey, actually we don't know where this is leading, what we're doing right now, but we can't stop it.
what I think is the natural limitations of this approach. Sooner or later, will put the natural brakes of this approach because this, as I mentioned, this approach is limited to language. That means that the economic impact of this approach is more limited to uh, administrative AI. I call it administrative AI. The real AI, and here is the vision of LeCun, which compensates this limitation with another direction. Okay, and his key thought is our human intelligence begin without language. Let's explore this
Yeah.
direction,
Yeah.
how we get this way. In fact, grabbing intelligence, defining intelligence, artificial intelligence in a visual way, by images. And that's how his method called JEPA was based. And recently he has shown some results. Where I think will come the time of this, I think the most impactful way of AI on economics and human society will be the time of the human robots.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a very, very
And
important
for
point of
we
convergence. Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
design
Yeah.
efficient human robots
Yeah.
without Yann LeCun's methodology. We
Yeah.
cannot do it only by language.
Yeah.
The robots must have the physics.
Yeah.
They must have the image, all the video, all the stuff. So it cannot be done with ChatGPT. No way. And sooner or later, this time will come.
Let me take an example because this is something I felt kind of questioning. When you take GPT, yeah, I understand with the language based model, you put in a prompt and you based on the prompt you get an answer and it's more or less good, yeah. And the other model, I understand, the other concept is that you give a visual input or that the system itself, when you talk about a robot, is roaming around, scanning its parameters and reasoning with what they see and decide the next step and the interpretation of what they see based on their artificial intelligence. What if I go today into a room with GPT and I take a picture of this room with my phone, and it has a certain setup of furniture and stuff like that, and I feed this picture, this visual, this image into GPT, asking it, give me the optimal, or give me 3 optimal options how to rearrange the room for optimal whatever, yeah, having a better workplace or having this or that or using the light better or whatever. It will, that's my experience, will give reasonable good results and even different options on how to rearrange this room based on the visual input that I've given. So how is this different from what Yann LeCun is talking about? Because I feel that it is already processing visual information. Another thing is, my experience is, many times when you cut and paste the screenshot of a document into GPT, it will more accurately process the information than if you upload the same document as a PDF. So there I already see a strong representation of visual information being processed. So how does this fit into the conversation?
And here is in the word representation. You know, all this generative AI, that's why here I would like to differentiate the name large language models from generative AI. But generative AI is a more generic definition. It includes language, video, image, and audio. It's a multimodal entity, if I can say, and especially this, and probably next year will be the years where almost any purely language product will grow as a multimedia product with integrating this. But
Can you say that again? Can you say that again? The last piece about the multimedia product?
Multimedia product,
yeah,
that will integrate video, audio, language as it now, and images.
So basically what we're seeing right now distributed across different apps about
They're
different variations, it will all be part of
step
one.
by step. For example, to my knowledge, the last version of Gemini has, you know, it's possible to blend images with the language. OpenAI and DALI, you know, they even at the beginning, you know, gradually they improve this. This is something that is available. What is not, but it is based on the principle of statistical pattern recognition of language and image.
So how is this different from JEPA? How is this different from JEPA?
At the basis of Yann LeCun methodology is that the biological evolution, including humans, tells us that in our brains we have the so-called world model. We integrate our knowledge based on received on all of our sensors. With what he defined as world knowledge, which is, again, it's a very, the definition is very fuzzy. It depends on many things. But the difference here is that when he trains, for example, this case that he had this recent reports from a couple of weeks ago, is that he says, okay, in order to build the world model, you don't need to train from pixels. You need to train in a higher abstract level. You need to train the machine what is a tree, the abstraction
Mm-hmm.
in this world model of a tree,
So not a
which
picture of a tree, but the concept of a tree.
in a higher abstract level.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part, the difficult part, without which it will be technically extremely difficult to. But okay, what do we mean a tree? How many branches?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
About the when we sink into the detail, as we know, the devil is in the detail. We can sink a lot. That's why it's a tough issue.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that at the basis of making intelligent decisions, we need to have tools, methods for that can deal with the higher abstract levels. That's what differentiates thinking from non-thinking, that we can go in a higher abstract level too. And usually we predict in a higher abstract level very often instinctively.
Yeah,
And that's
Yann LeCun brings great
that's
examples there.
his
Yeah, definitely.
idea. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's not, it cannot be fast.
Yeah.
It cannot, we need a lot of steps to go to these directions. It could even, this is one way that another research groups think that we can understand large language models in the same way. Let's see how across these 100 layers of 1 trillion parameters of, let's say, ChatGPT 4.0 or whatever number of the model, how the simple words can be combined in a more abstract level. Can the large language models internally build some level of abstractions? And that's how to understand why it statistically recommends the next more probable word. Maybe there are some internal links which show us some hierarchy of abstractions. But this is the way, one of the way that we can move ahead in understanding the nature of artificial intelligence. Why? Why we're moving this? Because without understanding, we have no control. Without control, we're always under the danger, some of these creatures to become a monster because we have no control over it. At some point now, probably it's not so dangerous if we are not in the picture. That means if somebody with who can use the AI as a tool to use it for wrong purposes. For example, somebody in North Korea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for now, AI by itself still cannot do it. But that we don't know until when and what to do if we reach to the point that it can do it. And the only way to do it is through understanding.
So and what would need to happen? So in the ideal world, what would we have to do? Would we stop the development of large language models and we would shift to
No.
so
Nobody can.
what would be the ideal
The
approach
only way to do it to spend R&D in understanding the nature of AI
in parallel to the current
in
development?
parallel to this.
Yeah. So kind of defining, along with
Uh,
the current development, defining the guardrails and defining the desired outcome and desired destination in terms of what do we want to use it for.
And if it relates to ChatGPT, to large language models, at least this is the easy part, because a lot of even the the big tech giants, they are spending a lot of efforts to minimize, for example, the hallucination. Some of the clear technical flaws of AI, they could be at least minimized. But the key flaw that we don't understand what's going on cannot be solved in this way. Even with the idea of let's increase the size, increase complexity in order to deliver more accurate results, goes into the opposite direction.
Because
Yeah,
the
we
model is
gain,
simply not able to
yeah,
process the complexity of the
yeah,
real
we
world.
gain
Yeah?
more details. Nevertheless,
Mm-hmm.
that we reach to the point of diminished returns, because what we'll train, we already trained what's available in the internet. There are no different voodoo sources of training that can jump the productivity
Yeah,
significantly.
yeah, yeah. Especially at this point now. Yeah.
So it's the jump cannot be done in this direction. We already squeezed this lemon to the limit. We
Yeah,
need to
good
go
point.
to
Yeah.
other directions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I think the direction of Yann LeCun, especially the idea, let's forget there is no better teacher than evolution. Darwin knew it, defined it almost 150 years ago. And because I'm very familiar with one of the areas of AI, the so-called evolutionary computation. This is a large area of research. And I know how fruitful it is and how many lessons we can learn. Even recently, I read a lot of books about AI of animals of different species, and I'm surprised. For God's sake, let's spend some time and learn and try to repeat what this level of natural intelligence had accomplished with AI, and then to jump to the to this to me a little bit crazy idea of AGI. And that's the biggest problem now, is this obsession with AGI. As I mentioned, and I strongly stay behind my comparison between this idea and the idea of communism before,
Mm-hmm.
because this is an idea not very well defined. But ideologically, it's a very good idea to put it up front and to spend $500 billion
Just for the sake of doing it.
for the second, as there was one social system, the communist system,
Like putting a man on the moon, like
that
you said, you know?
survived
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
70 years behind this crazy idea.
Yeah, you said last time that one comparison is also that everyone is trying to be the first in putting a man on the moon. This is the
Yeah,
situation
that's,
where we
but
are at the moment. Yeah.
yeah, but the moon is a very well-defined objective, not AGI.
Yeah, that is not very well defined. That's true. Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's very interesting. I mean, when you dive deeper with Yann LeCun a little bit, he's saying that he hopes that, but by the time that he retires, there will be a robot that is as smart as a cat. So he says a cat is still smarter than robots. Yeah, and he's giving those examples of how much intelligence through through observations and operations and processing the reality around themselves, a 4-year-old has achieved already. And what is behind a 17-year-old learning the complexity on how to drive, yeah, and to control a vehicle in traffic and everything, versus the decades of trying to train autonomous vehicles. Yeah. So giving some very, very real world examples that are easy to understand and see the comparison. I think your comparison about the atomic bomb development in the 40s is a very good similarity. But still, I feel that the whole situation, and I think this is also the reason why there's so much room for interpretation. It's still kind of foggy to me, you know. It's still kind of, it has so much ambiguity and so much uncertainty in it. And as you said, the man on the moon is a very clear target and goal, whereas we are kind of poking in the dark, or we're poking in the fog, and even in the definition of outcomes.
and here my okay, as we mentioned, now the AI community is, you have the researchers, you have the top guys, who develop the technology. You have the business as a user, and we have the society. First, let's begin with the developers. The key flaw of the brute force is that force is limited. And we're close to reaching to that limits, if it's not one. So, and from that perspective, if you reach to that limits and you see that there is no drastical change, then you are, for God's sake, what will do 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Is that, your bright future from 1 trillion parameters to, 500 trillion parameters? No drastic change. In fact, the very existence of large language models is based on a different architecture called transformers with attention that was developed in 2017. In 2015, we didn't have any idea that 5 years later we'll have large language models, because without this revolutionary architecture, we could not do it. And why we had this? Because we had R&D. Even I prefer this $500 billion that the business is ready to throw on the on the brute force scenario. Even allocating 10% of them for R&D can probably deliver fundamental breakthroughs that can move us faster ahead than following this, to me, not intelligent approach. I don't want to use the word stupid, which is maybe the exact word.
Okay.
And then this is on the scientific level. The business, as I mentioned, very soon we'll see that, and Nadella had raised this issue in one of the interviews a couple of months ago, that the real impact of AI will be if it impacts if it increases at least 5% the GDP globally. We're too far away from that point. Especially, that's the paradox with Gen AI, with administrative type of AI, we cannot do it.
So you think that the increase of personal productivity will not be enough? You're basically saying that we need the increase of industrial productivity
yes,
in order to reach that goal. And for that, generative AI is not insufficient.
We need optimization.
Yeah.
We don't need marketing plans generated 10 times faster by ChatGPT. Give me a break.
Which obviously, and everyone understands the rationale behind that, which obviously makes total sense when we talk about climate change mitigation, energy consumption optimization, waste reduction in production processes and food systems and stuff. So everyone can understand where this could contribute and where these 5% could come from. Yeah. Okay, so let's go a little bit towards the concept of an open source AI development. Yeah, I remember this has been a big discussion the whole time, and this is a very important topic for Yann LeCun as well. It's an important topic for you. It's an important topic for Orchestrate AI. And let's maybe have a look at where we come from. Where we come from is OpenAI was called OpenAI. I understand one of the originators of this name was Elon Musk at the time when he was still together with Sam Altman. And which one of the Google guys is Larry Page or or Sergey Brin? I'm not sure, but one of the Google guys
I'm not so sure.
to found OpenAI in order to clearly signal that this is a non-profit open source AI think tank and platform, let's say, for the development and proliferation, global proliferation of AI for the sake of humankind. Then we had this strategic partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI that spent billions and billions of dollars into the commercial development. And then the first counterpart I've seen was the emergence of Mistral AI in France, which was not just an answer, and we will talk about this in one of our other sessions, which was not just an answer in the to be expected continental, transcontinental, intercontinental arms race, AI arms race, saying, hey, and we talked about that the majority of AI talent, even in the US, is coming from Europe. So these were key scientists and key developers from Silicon Valley that returned to France and say, hey, together with a government initiative, saying, hey, we're going to launch Mistral as a key incubator and accelerator of a Eurocentric and open source AI development platform. And then we had the announcement of limitations of non-US companies being able to work with US-based AI technology and stuff like this. So that we quickly came into multiple black box developments, multiple big players, yeah, that were basically all developing their own proprietary solutions. I would say probably today in the context of generative AI, OpenAI with ChatGPT is still leading. I would say that. And the question for me is there still room for real open source AI development? And there are a number of platforms which are following this approach. And who is really currently shaping the trajectory of AI and who is being left out? Who's really leading the conversation? Because we do have almost a little bit of an oligopoly in the looking at the key players. Yeah, is this a battle between big tech monopolies and the rest of us, kind of, with a lot of political mandate behind it, but then again they are again relying on those big big tech players, or are there more nuanced forces at play? So what are the dynamics of the current market there, and where do you think is the chance for a real open source AI approach in the future?
It's a very complex question.
Yeah.
First, my sincere opinion is that it's not the most dangerous thing. What do you mean by open source? We mean we have a model with 1 trillion numbers. That's what's open. What's the logic behind it? We don't know. The key issue, and here is again, we go to the fundamental issue, is the black hole nature of this type of models. We don't understand. Even if we have the numbers, The only degree of freedom that we have is that we can try to change the numbers without the sufficient depth of their meaning. But here, this is the bad news. To me, it's almost for those who would like to improve these models, it makes sense. And I strongly stay behind the camp of open source type of models. I doubt that if the programmers in North Korea decide to do bad things, they will do it independently. Is it open or closed source? So, but the open source gives opportunity to explore inside the black hole. That's the advantage. Otherwise, with tighten hands. We cannot do it. But the good news is the other. Recently, the new wave of applications of AI goes into the purely free and decentralized solutions of AI agents, of agentic AI, which gives us the freedom to do the application. We don't depend so much on the closed nature of LLMs. The efficiency of these systems depends on our imagination, on our knowledge of designing this type of systems, with that taking into account that the brain of this system is again a large language models with all the flows of the large language models. But if we know the flows, if we guard the rail of the system, we have the control. So that's, to me, more important, to go into the direction of democratization of AI, which is the direction of intelligent agents, and stay behind those companies. And there are companies that are delivering models with open source.
Is there a chance that the market, through competition, through a competitive race between those different models, is going to provide a solution to that? Or are the ones
I
who are
don't have
already
data.
established
I
so
don't have
strong that,
data. I don't have data to claim the one point or the other.
yeah,
Because it's first, the companies that deliver open source data are the minority
yeah,
in
yeah,
this game. But what's interesting, for example, the Chinese company had delivered an open source solution. Even in the big arms race, US versus China, the Chinese cannot close the door.
Interesting. I didn't. I
And
wasn't
by the
aware of
way,
this. Yeah.
they're surprised with their good solutions and very inventive technical solutions. It was, as somebody mentioned in January, when the big surprise came obvious, this as an IT Sputnik moment, as you know, in the late 50s, after the Soviet at the time launched the first satellite called Sputnik, that created a shock in the United States, even that changed
Yeah.
the whole STEM system of education, etc., etc. And I'm surprised that the Americans were surprised. Look at the Chinese system of education. It is very STEM heavy. The majority of students, even in the US universities in computer science, are Chinese. So why surprise?
Yeah.
So that's to me the I'm not so worried about this,
Yeah.
frankly speaking. Even I see Europe going maybe into this direction to try to uh, spend a lot of money for creating a parallel structure to the US. I'm not so sure that The solution is Mistral solution. Mistral is
yeah,
maybe the good example how Europe should go.
yeah, yeah.
But Europe needs 100 Mistrals to move ahead, not one.
Hmm.
At least a clear European competitor of Mistral to move Mistral.
Okay, so taking a look into the future, yeah, Yann LeCun talks about a future society of machines, he calls it, where AI systems help us reason, plan, and act, but remain under human control, or even more so, being controlled through um, AI systems controlling AI systems, so that rogue AI systems are being picked out and being prevented and being kept under control. So he's very positive about the perspective of the humans will always stay in control of AI, and they will benefit from the acceleration it will bring to the human society and to individual productivity and work. The question is that realistic, coming from Yann LeCun? And how do we ensure that these systems truly serve humanity and not the other way around, as his peers are even seeing, yeah, as a danger on the way forward?
Again, we're coming back to the key issue that we discussed at the beginning of this discussion. It's to spend efforts of understanding well all the mechanisms of AI in order to get a direct, clear control. It cannot be done with the brute force type of developing AI. Even I think the future of AI, my vision is not as one entity of hybrid intelligence, not excluding the human at all in the loop. We have to, partially we are almost, some pieces are almost available now. We cannot drive without AI.
Mm-hmm.
Even very often, even we cannot communicate in the computer without AI. So soon, pieces by pieces, this collaboration, this hybrid type is beginning to form, to shape. But in all of this, the key principle is the final control is in the human intelligence. The driver is a human driver.
Yeah.
AI gives recommendations, directions,
It's a
etc.
catalyst. It's a
It's a
catalyst. That's
catalyst.
it. That's it.
This
Yeah. Yeah.
idea of
It's
AI
also my
as
opinion. Yeah. Yeah.
AI as an amplifier,
Yeah.
compensator,
Yeah.
because something it amplifies something which we are missing, it simply delivers. It compensates the lack of this or that capabilities of human intelligence. But at the base of it, it's one entity. It's a mutual collaboration. It's an uh, intrinsic collaboration. You cannot separate. We're reaching to the point where it's not done by AI, but it's done by this hybrid system.
Yeah. We give the inputs, we give the prompt, we give the command, we say, hey, Alexa, do this or that. Hey,
And
Siri,
and
do this and that.
and even with the driving case, even we don't think, we operate as a one entity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is to me the way, but in order to reach to that point, we have to have control over the different components of AI systems. Now it's okay, but when we reach to the point of physical AI, the robots, then it will become difficult. But in order to make it easier, the joint collaboration, we need to understand, we need to have every nitty-gritty details in this, in all of our artificial AI-related creatures. That's to me the how I see the future. And I'm very enthusiastic with the agentic AI capabilities because that gives us partially the freedom. Again, it's limited. It has the generic flaw that the brain of each AI agent is an LLM with all of the other negatives. But we can guardrail this LLM with because we have control over the design of the agent or the agency, which is the more powerful, which is based on one agent. The economic impact will be very limited, but the agency, cooperative action of various type of agents can be a really economic driver. Yeah, we are at the beginning of this process. Maybe I'm more enthusiastic than necessary at this point. But this as a technology, this is to me a very bright spot, which all of us, and this is very open to what Orchestrate AI would like to do, because the doors are open. Even we don't need much deep programming skills in order to try something like this. And one of the good side effects of large language models is they're improving ways to relieve us from detailed programming skills. Its capability to generate reliable code are growing, and probably it will reach to the point where, if not perfect, but in most of the cases, it can generate code. That means it's a good tool in the hands of almost everybody to try something, to explore something. So that's the paradox. The big tech wants super centralization, to have full control over generating these giants with trillions parameters. But the reality, because now the critical mass is in the society, is in the billions. They have no controls over the brains of billions.
So we have a decentralization of the overall.
We have an objective decentralization,
democratization,
with growing capabilities to develop solutions, mostly by intelligent agents
around decentralized use cases also.
Yeah, and use cases. So now it's at the beginning. Now maybe I doubt that even 8 millions from these 8 billions have these opportunities. I doubt that. The number is so big. But gradually it will grow.
And there we kind of have our open source reality to a certain degree, if we go down that road.
Now with the agents, we have this open source capabilities now. Don't listen, my stupid advances. Don't listen to this AGA BS. Focus on what you can do with the current level of AI. Even the business, I'm saying it every day, the business doesn't need AGI. The business needs...
That's already the
business needs high professionalism in a very narrow area where is the competitive advantage of the business.
You're already answering the final question.
And we already have it.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah. I still have one point here on my list, which is talking about whether AI can ever become truly intelligent without embodiment and what embodiment means. So a representation of the physical world, the world model. I think we already talked about this earlier on, right? Um, the focus on predictive video-based learning instead of just language-based learning, right? Um, this is certainly one of the directions that Yann LeCun is proposing. And this, you say, is the only way in order to cross the barrier to create something meaningful that is able to go past the hallucinations and past the
No,
limitations of the
no,
current model, right?
I mean,
So
for
what do we mean by embodiment? What do we mean
by
by that?
embodiment, I mean to develop a world model. That's
Mm-hmm.
my understanding of this. And because one of the key features of AI is prediction.
Mm-hmm.
I always define these three absolutely necessary: uh, machine learning, prediction, and reasoning. These are the absolute minimum of capabilities of an AI system. But in order to do the prediction, even the animals, even we human, we have a world model. Even the human, it knows, it detects by its sensors, oh, there is a lion behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to move fast in this direction because from my sensors, the lion is left behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So it has the physical understanding of the environment. It has it, you know, it didn't learn physics to have all the laws of physics, but it has in its learn animal model. It knows what to do, predicts what it needs to do in order to survive. The very fact that any uh, living creature had survived through this difficult uh, competition during the evolution
Mm-hmm.
means that it had predicted well. It had the right world model in this phrase, in this terminology, if I can use Yann LeCun's terminology, in order to survive. And it's absolutely the same logic for any AI system. In order to be, in fact, the world model of any LLM is this uh, compressed knowledge that we have, but it's not structured. If it's structured, it didn't need to calculate probabilities of this or that. It can reason and find exactly what
Mm-hmm.
the answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
humans do.
Because based
We
on the
don't
world model. Yeah.
calculate
Yeah. Yeah.
1 trillion words until
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
found the next word. When we talk to each other, we don't have this process.
Yeah.
And that's to me the key logic and the key way for, I think, long-term development of artificial intelligence.
Okay.
We need to reach, and here Yann LeCun is also right. We need we need to pass all of these tests of the evolution in order to be ready for the to be competitive at the human level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now we're competitive at very separate levels. Our LLMs, they claim, oh, we beat in math, we beat in this, we beat in that, humans. But it's a test, it's not real life. If that's the case, everybody will be brilliant after finishing high school or the university.
Yeah.
As we know, it's not the case.
Yeah. Okay, so let's come to the final question, and you kind of already answered a little bit. a few moments ago, and it's probably the most important also, looking at these different perspectives, on these different predictions, on this almost a little bit cacophony of different opinions and observations, and which creates a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty and a lot of loose ends. Yeah, you have been very more optimistic, and you say, well, let's not don't listen to that noise so much. Don't follow or don't rely so much on all these AGI predictions and conversations. Yeah. So what advice would you give to the next generation of AI builders and researchers and policymakers? Yeah. And how can Orchestrate AI help catalyze a more human-centered, globally aware, and ethically grounded AI future here?
So my advice, let's make it very direct. My advice to almost everybody, new or experienced in AI, because there is no experienced people in AI.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Good
one of the
point.
longest record, 30
Mm-hmm.
plus years,
Mm-hmm.
with three big companies, with gazillion applications, with tremendous impact, introducing AI into uh, also three big, large corporations, etc. Now is a unique time. There is no experienced people because almost nobody knows how to respond to this dynamically changing situation almost every month.
The cards are being reshuffled kind of on an
You know,
ongoing basis.
so but on the one hand, don't be. What I do, I try to filter the noise,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe what is the good news, the unique moment, unique time is that almost everybody can begin doing something with Gen AI, with all of its limitations, the large language models, and especially now with the growing wave, with the growing capabilities of intelligent agents, begin what do you need and begin doing something with AI. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be your natural response to the future. And we will find first what works for you, because the key direction is a hybrid AI and a fruitful collaboration with the growing capabilities of AI and you
So as an AI, as an amplifier and catalyst
as an
of, yeah,
amplifier.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
to me,
yeah,
an orchestrate AI will help you
yeah.
as much as possible. But you need to move from the passive phase, reading, listening, whatever, to active phase, trying something, doing something with AI. That's how you touch the truth. Because everybody now tries to, because of the social nature now
Yeah,
of
yeah,
AI,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
everybody is a propaganda. It's
yeah.
as any social entity.
And always
It
the fear
tries
of
to
missing out,
reach
of
to
course.
and
Yeah,
to
yeah.
shape your thinking, whatever. Okay, and there are diverse opinions.
Yeah.
Opinions are opinions. Okay, let
Mm-hmm.
the sources of opinion live with them. Let's they
Mm-hmm.
try to influence.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is you now have the capabilities to act, and nothing can replace this.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So don't postpone your decision.
Mm-hmm.
Begin this today, begin this in the worst case tomorrow, but don't postpone it for too long.
And it all starts with the understanding of what does it mean for me, what is it really, and how can I leverage this for my reality, for my business, for my specific situation and use cases. This is really where the whole journey starts, like we said last time already, and we will look a little bit more at it when we talk about the adoption journey. Good, great. So Arthur, thank you for joining me in this episode of the Orchestrated AI podcast. Very deep and thought-provoking conversation. I think I still don't have all the answers to my questions here in this very wide range, and I'm probably not the only one. So if today's episode sparked your interest, share it, leave us a comment in the comments below, start a conversation with your network, send us a message, join the platform. We really believe that this is the moment to move beyond anxiety and hype, and not just look at the scale and the momentum, but really look at something more intentional and more inclusive and more human-centered, what it means for us individually and for our reality. And if you'd like to get involved, whether as leading a work group or being a regional chapter host or a thought partner or sponsor, we'd love to hear from you, of course. Send us a message through our website, orchestrate-ai.org, or connect with us via LinkedIn, or send us an email to hello@orchestrateai.org. Yeah, until next time, and thanks, Arthur, for joining. Again, it was a pleasure to discuss this with you. And yeah, see you soon.
See you.